going to give it a minute, everybody who's already joined. We have thousands of people that are joining us tonight. So I'm going to just kind of watch this and make sure that we've got this. I've got a little ticker here. But Scott, I think I was telling you, to be an artist and have thousands of people join is pretty incredible. So congrats to you. That's cool.
Hey, thank you. What an honor. I'm just excited to be able to. I was just telling you guys how excited I am just to talk to people and be in these people's homes. It's incredible. Thank you for letting us into your home.
Yeah, folks, we appreciate that. And it's actually sort of a little bit strange at the same time. You mentioned to me, we were talking, a week or so ago, you were talking about the drive-in concert that you guys did in Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
And this idea that you knew it was a live show, but it felt very almost like you guys were alone on stage, right?
Yeah, I mean it's quieter. It's more like
quiet,
a TV performance. Yeah.
So
I don't think the people out there were quiet. They were loud, but it just sort of it doesn't come back like it does.
Right, it doesn't come back. And I can't imagine like those NFL players and stuff what they deal with because there's nobody in those stands. But this is odd because there's literally thousands of people. In any event, we're going to wait one more second and then we're going to get, we're going to let everybody, oh, you know what? Orly.
Yep.
We look like we're stuck at 1,000. And I just got a text saying that there's a lot of people that can't get in. It looks like it didn't actually up to, sorry, folks.
I will call her.
Can you call her right now? Thank you. Sorry, folks. We've got a bit of a technical glitch. So bear with us. Somehow this web event froze at 1,000 and we know that there's thousands more of you trying to get in. So we're gonna pause for a moment here. Yeah, I'm getting a bunch of emails now.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's happening.
Will you see a chat on this? There won't be a chat here. We won't see a chat.
There's not a chat. There's we're going to be able to send some messages, but for some reason, we had capacity for everybody, and it doesn't look like it's letting everybody in.
Well, as long as we don't talk about art before, as long as we're just talking about, can we talk about your mountain biking?
I'm sure the 1,000 people that are on now are definitely going to want to hear about that.
You could tell your stories about Jimmy Johnson and his taunting you and his
Jimmy and I mountain biking. Yeah. That's how he's getting. He is. I got to tell you what, he's fast. Oh, the one where he taunted me to jump that one creek.
The jump, and he said the last guy that did it was the helicopter out or whatever.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening, Jimmy told me he's a good buddy, and we were out mountain biking, and he wanted me to jump this creek, which I didn't want to jump. And so
did you do it?
He jumped it. It was massive. It was like there's no chance I was jumping this thing. But he did perfectly with a little like finesse, kind of a kick in the middle of it. And exactly one of those. So he lands it perfectly. Like, come on. Not doing it. He goes, yeah, it's probably a good call. Because I told my other buddy to do it. He didn't make it and ended up getting airlifted to the hospital.
And then Jimmy goes about his business and just, go ahead and try to get you to do the same thing. It's just fine with him.
Yeah, exactly. So Scott and I shared Jimmy as a friend, which is and Jimmy's wife Shani, who's got a gallery locally in Charlotte, who's great. So
she's brilliant. No, her place is brilliant. Yeah,
we're getting lots of people hoping that they can get in.
Yeah, I hope they can.
Orly, have you been able to contact our Zoom contact? All right, she must be.
She left.
She's on the phone with them. Yeah, as of this morning, we had plenty of bandwidth for it, but I don't know. I don't know what's happened. So while we are waiting, I know we're going to talk about art during COVID and such, but just what have you kind of been doing other than that? You know, for the past several months, 6 months.
You know what? Actually, like right when it kicked up, and we really didn't know what it was all going to be. Like I really had a question about. The grocery store started feeling really strange. You know, at first it was like going to get groceries. I was just like, what is the extent of this? Like, what's happening right now? And in my, I don't guess it looked like panic, but it felt like, well, what do we do? What do we have as far as resources? So we just dug in on the farming aspect of things, and we bought. They were slaughtering pigs and chickens because a lot of farmers didn't have availability of processing places. So we bought 3 pigs from a big farm that was happened to put some down. So we bought 5 pigs and we bought 50 processing chickens. We already had laying hens, and we started that, and we've now processed two rounds of chickens, and the pigs lived a very lush life for
unreal.
For the 8-9 months that they lived before you process it. But I mean, it was like full woods. I mean, it's really a great life form. I don't know if we'll do the pigs again. It's you can't help but get attached to those things. They're really incredible.
Right.
They're so smart, so incredible, and you can't, even if you don't name them, you fall in love with them. So I don't know. We had to find out though, and so we did. We've been doing that. And we did have a big vegetable garden, and I think I put up an Instagram about it early on. But then I didn't say anything else about it because we found out there was a chemical in our ground that was a pesticide it was an herbicide, and it was our whole garden was ruined with this herbicide. So we couldn't eat anything. We were recommended not to eat anything out of it. So we had to put down cover crop and just call it a year on that. But we have really smart people around here. Young farmers that have been very helpful on our property. So, I mean, that's one thing. There's a lot to that. I'm a terrible farmer. I try, but I'm not too good at it. I like being on the farm, but it's hard work.
I know. I mean, I know nothing about it. Well, I'm sorry. Wait 1 second. Hey, if the folks that are on, I know that there's a chat that goes amongst many of the Avett fans. If any of you that are on would be so kind as to let all the other folks know, I'm getting sort of hundreds or maybe thousands of emails coming in. If you could chat out to everybody that for some reason Zoom is working on this, and we should know shortly. We should be able to let everybody in shortly. I don't know what the problem is, but if somebody could do that, that would be really great. I appreciate it. Whoever's able to do that. And we appreciate you guys hanging in there. I think we're
I wish we could take questions from them, Bob.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry, folks. We don't have that ability with this webinar format that we've got. We have disabled the chat because we thought it might be too difficult in getting through all this. So we're hanging in there. I do have some questions. I might just go and ask you one of these. Well, one of the questions that came in, I had probably, I don't know how many questions people had posed ahead of time. But a lot of it was around COVID and what that's been in terms of an opportunity or a difficulty for you. And I don't know if you want to speak to that at all. We'll come back to it maybe for the other folks, but I know from an art making standpoint, because you and I have been talking throughout COVID, it's been pretty prolific for you.
It has. I was closing down the painting studio in March after, or even February when we went to Dominican Republic for our last shows, live or concerts there in 2020. And instead, I was just sort of, instead of touring through the year, given all this time, and it was what was provided versus what was taken. Touring was obviously taken out of the mix. The plans changed, but what was provided was other things. And time in the studio seemed really obvious, like right off the bat. And it actually. Well, I don't want to get too much in this, and I will talk about more because it applies to some of the work. But like it's what that limitation is what directed me into the commitment of some of the couple of the paintings, the creek and the painting behind me over here. It directed me into painting with smaller strokes. It changed my approach and my sensibility where I've been following before then. I mean, because I looked at it as time changed, my pace changed, and I had more patience. Because I had more time. I didn't feel rushed, and then I got to really sit with myself more and really kind of get a good look at myself on how fast and frantic I work. Probably our band works. I know personally, for me, I just worked frantically most of my life. And it helped sort of, I don't know, usher me at least to the side to be able to view that, to be able to observe that and go, oh, well, wait, there's a better way of working, or at least a different way of working for now, maybe a better way for the time. I don't know. But I'm certainly, there's a lot of meaning in it that I'm going to be carrying forward for sure.
Okay, good. It looks like Zoom may have resolved the issue. Orly, who's our technical assistant here, who you all can't see, she's behind the scenes. Orly, I've seen it jump a little bit, but if everybody who is on the Avett chat could text out to folks that it looks like it's working now. That would be great if you could give a shout out to everybody to retry. I appreciate that. It looks like it's working. Orly, if it looks like it's maybe stuck at about 1500 or something. So I don't know if I'm just texting out to a couple of folks. People, thanks for holding on. See if that worked. Did that work? I got to tell you what, as amazing as technology is, many times it can let you down at the moment.
Sure.
I mean, there's got to be a lesson in that somewhere.
Oh man, sure thing.
I think it's in a painting of yours somewhere. Like
I'm sure, or it will be.
Yeah, or it will be, right? All right, it looks like it's working, although my counter seems frozen at a particular level here. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, it looks like it's moving up now. I hope we didn't lose too many folks in that. Well, this is the other thing I'm going to tell everybody while we're waiting here for a second. Everybody that's on here, if you want to go get yourself a glass of wine or something, Scott and I did that earlier.
Virtually.
Virtually. So I would recommend maybe getting a cocktail, and we're going to start up here shortly. Just trying to assess if it worked with some of the folks that I know that are out there. It froze up again. It started letting people in, and then it froze.
No.
Well, the other thing that I will tell folks is that we are recording this too. So if other folks have missed it, the good news is we can send out a link to the recording, and they'll be able to view it that way. So as soon as I see this number moving up again, we're gonna get rolling.
That's cool.
All right, we got a couple of people that are telling me that they're able to get in now, so that's good. Let me ask you this, it's not on my list at all, but family is such an important part of your work. What about your kids and their kind of creative output? Where does that stand? I know I've seen some things that your kids have done in the studio with you.
Yeah.
Are they still kind of playing around in the studio with you?
Yeah, they're all three. It's interesting. I'm sure every parent out there, you included. Yeah, I think our kids all express themselves through different mediums, like obvious. And like I've seen during this time, my daughter's writing is it's the next level. Like it's incredible because her reading is next level. Like maybe she's had more time to read, in this time, but
right.
Her writing is really sort of blowing my mind. I just she's well beyond anything that I've ever done formally ever. And and then watching the two boys. The middle kid is very creative with all mediums. He has he likes to say he's kinetic, but he's nonstop. He's distracted constantly, and he's wild as he can be. And it's pretty great to see. I mean, a lot of the work that I do, because I see in my boys, as well as my daughter, childhood to adulthood, but not to go too far into that. My youngest, I see a mix in him. He's really quick to recognize guide posts. So he's good with words and images.
Right.
He's a little more methodical than my middle boy. And both my first and third are more methodical and organized. In the middle, obviously,
sure,
as usual, is a little less methodical and always in the now, sort of.
Sure.
But yeah, we really encourage it. Like I don't know. I think in the household, like we don't live in a part of the country or a part of the world that I think creative employment is a priority or high on the list of how people are living. But that never made a difference to me. It's not going to make a difference in our household. I think it's an extremely viable and important part of their life.
Yeah.
So.
Good. All right, I think we're going to get started. There's a bunch of people loading in now, so
awesome.
At this point, awesome. I think we're gonna get rolling. And like I said, if anybody can't join us, then we'll have to send them the link, and they can join us through the recorded version of this. So, folks, a couple of things just to get started. Thanks, obviously, for bearing with us here. So as I mentioned, we've got sort of thousands of people joining. even though some people haven't gotten in here. So the way that Zoom is working here is it's a webinar, which means that some of the functionality that you're used to in Zoom, if you've been doing Zoom calls, might not be the same as what you're used to. But in any event, we're going to do a discussion. I'm going to share my screen on some things while Scott's talking so that we get to see some imagery that's going to prompt some questions and things. We had some really, really great questions that came in from all of you. I appreciate that. I got questions for the last 3-4 days. We obviously can't get to all of them because I have hundreds and hundreds of questions, but many of them were sort of coalesced into something that I think we'll be able to touch on at the end. We're going to get to as many of them as we can. And then at the end of this, we're going to give you a link, which is sort of a key that unlocks this online exhibition. And you guys will be the first people to access that exhibition. And there's some really, really beautiful work that Scott's created as far as that. But before we do that, I just want to ask and answer a quick question that has been asked of me many times over the last several months. And that is, when is the Scott Avett Invisible book going to be available? There's lots of people on the waiting list. That book has sold out in just its sort of coffee table format. We do have some deluxe versions that are available in the exhibition tonight that we'll link you to. But the book itself is sold out. We're working really hard to get a reprint going. At this time during COVID, it's a little bit difficult. The book is made by hand for the most part, and the studios that we work with have been sort of on and off operating based on COVID. So we don't have a reliable way of making the book at this point, but as soon as we do, we'll let you know, and that'll be happening. So I think that's really it. So I'm going to jump right in to what we wanted to talk about, Scott, which is, started touching on it a little bit, but I'm going to share my screen while we're talking. So much of your work is created in this environment, sort of in isolation, right? Isolation in your studio. You live on, I think most people knows you live out on a farm. Here you are working in the studio, but you share this farm with your family. This is a still that I pulled from the May It Last documentary. Your brother and your dad out on the farm, looking back and just sort of enjoying the landscape. And I know family and this environment is such an important part of your work. When was this picture taken?
Man, I bet that's 1982. No. Yeah, 1982, 1983.
Is Seth taller than you? This is Seth. This is you. Is Seth taller than you now?
He is now. Not then, though. There's proof.
So living on the farm and family being such an important part of the work, I'm curious just about how that sort of isolation impacts the work. It's very different than the way in which you make music, right?
Yeah. The way we make music as far as on the road with a lot of people, for sure. And record. But the inception or the creation of songs is similar to this. But I mean that idea, the isolation, being alone, it's really necessary for me because I'm distracted easily, and I'm affected really easily by things that I see or experience, and they can really disrupt and upend my efforts a lot of times. Sometimes that's something I struggle with on the road, in like totally different environments a lot. I'm really a slow grow on that because I had to get used to and familiar with places that we would travel, and as I do it more, it became more like home and felt comfortable. But being in isolation and being in a, I guess, controlled environment, but knowing that it's not really that controlled, but just being alone is good for me. And I love it. I really do love that. I think it's key to my contribution to the masses. It's important to be said that it's important to note that I don't do it because it's just something that I prefer. I mean, it suits me for sure. I just, I'm saying that, but I do think that it's also part of the tools that I need to contribute, which is to create, to make things. I need that type of space.
And we've talked a lot about COVID. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but that seems like a moment in time that has really changed a lot of the way in which you've worked. Been a prolific time for many artists, you included. There's a few paintings that I thought we would look at that I know are paintings that have kind of come out of this moment. So tell us a little bit about the piece that we're looking at now.
So this is right before COVID. This was shown at.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
However, this transitions in. So this one and then the one that's behind me are both about, they're really thinking a lot about boyhood, manhood, rite of passage. And that's where I was before COVID. Like that was this past winter, January, it was December last year and January this year is when I was making these pieces. And I was starting to hint around, with the tire and with some of the detail in there. I was starting to hint around at this more naturalistic and more, realism approach, but also was intent on keeping broad strokes and keeping things fast and drippy and wet and not really getting too slow about it. But that was before COVID. And like I said, COVID slowed that a little bit.
Sure. There's this other painting that you did, which I'll switch to.
Yeah, that one and this one.
Same time, right?
Same time, same stream of thought, I think.
This is a great piece. When you talk about boyhood and manhood, are you looking at that from a perspective of a father, or are you looking at it as a son because you and your dad are close? And for those folks that don't know, Scott's dad is a really accomplished musician as well. And the way I met your dad was just being on the road with you guys. I mean, he's there through the whole thing, and I know he has been a lot of that. So how do you see that fitting in paintings like this?
Yeah, well, our dad's really supportive. Like we were raised with a lot of love. Like we were just super privileged in that realm. We weren't privileged in fortune of money, but we were super privileged in that we had parents that wanted to put in and encourage us and support us in what we got into and our interests. And so that's just carried on through our whole lives. And I think that's right. I think that makes sense. My connection or my relationship with the subject of boyhood or boyhood to manhood or rite of passage or masculinity, really it's really all about me. My boys as well. My boys as well as my daughter are good mirrors and they're reflective of what I've done, been through, and what I'm going through now and what I'm experiencing now. Really informative and really like I've learned, I'm learning so much about manhood and fatherhood and masculinity in watching children grow. Both boys and girls. It's really important. But it's really about me. I mean, a lot of ways they're self-portraits, they're my story, I think.
Okay. And this piece here with this N and then you have the ice here is, it's obviously nice. What did that mean to you?
Well, I got obsessed with taking pictures of ice machines on tour. I started noticing all the different fonts on ice machines. And so I just shot a lot of them. And one way, I really like the way these works come together in hindsight, sort of. And what I hope will happen is I forget what I'm taking pictures for, or I forget which pictures I've taken. And then when I moved to act, and I'm finding pieces in the photographs or the pictures I've taken, I see a little story happening. Of course, I think that's pretty common. Sure. But the nice came because I think I was really thinking about this, the idea of being good or bad, you know, not a nice person or a not nice person,
Sure.
and what the value of that is, and what is that? Is there even any reality to that at all? And just that boy there is so curious and innocent. I mean, I know at that point in his life, I mean, I was there with him at that point of his life. It wasn't that long ago, but he's not messing with any of those thoughts right now.
Right.
He's pure curiosity. And his brother is the torso. It's upside down torso.
Okay.
You know, he's maybe I'm looking back on it, I'm thinking maybe he's in tailspin or something. I'm not sure. A lot of that starts with form and with composition, and it writes itself, you know, once I'm there.
Right.
The thistle there. He also that the boy with the blue hat is obsessed with thistles, and it was going to be a properly painted thistle, but then I left it white because it looked so good white.
Cool. And then we get to this painting, which kind of brings us into a different realm, which I know you just finished. We talked about with the folks when we invited them. You know, this is something that literally just left your easel, and so this one being indicative of kind of a piece you created during COVID. Tell us a little bit about the differences here.
Yeah, it's actually still on the easel.
Oh,
you know?
There you go.
And here's can the people see me?
Yeah.
This is what's left of it right there. You know, that's what it was made from. One of many of those, but I haven't even cleaned this one up yet. But this right when COVID, not right when, but probably April, May, I started getting really curious about a painter that I've been told about from a friend. Eric Fischel had told me about Malcolm Morley, and Malcolm Morley, I just heard about his personal life, and I thought he was really intriguing and awesome sounding. And as I read about Malcolm, I really felt drawn and connected to him, and in his playful approach to painting, probably his playful approach to meaning in painting. I was just really, really responding to that as I was reading about him and looking at his work. And so I just thought, as an exercise, I would just do what he did. Now, I didn't do this painting. I did some other things that were just doing what he did. But something that I took from what I was responding to was this idea of arbitrary images and setting up a grid on a canvas and painting or putting two arbitrary images together and seeing. I don't know if he did this exactly, but what I gathered was arbitrary images put together. What will happen? What will they mean? What meanings will come out of them? For me, I was mostly interested in what will happen if I paint each square one at a time, with no concern about what the object is that I'm painting. So that was just a great, big and 3-month long exercise that I did on this painting. And then the meanings started just jumping out at me.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, right at the top, I couldn't help. I did the top part first, and I immediately saw the young white boy sort of being put in this place by the girl, kind of like you know. There's a reckoning, and I thought that spoke to something that you know, some of the times and some of the social things that are going on. I mean, it started saying, I started thinking, if I saw that, that's what it'd be reading to me. Like, she just kicking water in his face, like you know, like, get out of my face, like, get out of here, you know, like, don't cause any trouble.
But it's interesting when you freeze a moment in time like that and put it on such a scale, like, you know, you can tell the scale, folks, of this painting when you look at it behind Scott. I mean, it's massive. It does say something more different. It says something different than what you might just take initially, right?
Yeah, I was wondering if it says something social. To me, it's two kids playing. It's wonderful. Like that's all it is. But I couldn't help but think if you're locked into a time, what would you see? And then on the bottom is much more personal because I know him personally, but he becomes more of just the solitary, the lonely, with a really overwhelming mess of a muse that is just, it's just a wreck. It's just a mess. And that is me, that I understand that, I know that. But that's also that particular human's personality of there's a love of solitude, and there's a very contemplative presence in him, and that's, I start seeing that, like, I really was just drawn to that image because of the mass of colors, the mess of colors down there with all those Legos and the flag. And then it was crazy interesting how they started interacting with each other at the top. And it's one canvas, but it started right in that seam in the middle, how they started working together, how the pool sort of moves into the flag. So, I mean, all those things just kind of coming out of me, out of my control. I didn't think about those things before they were revealed to me. I thought that was a great surprise. It was worth the time to do. But it also more so, it was a great test and exercise in patience for me and in contemplation.
When you talk about sort of that meaning evolving like that, is that similar to what happens in music? Does that
I think
you
so.
set out to do something in music? Do you know it when you start what you're trying to do in music?
I mean, I'd have to say for me, I doubt it. It doesn't really sound appealing to know. Like I just was looking at a quote the other day. What did Picasso say? I start with an idea and then I end with something completely different. Sure. And then the quote from Rauschenberg that if I knew how to do something, why in the world would I want to do it? And that's that to me. That's that I respond to that 100%. Like, that's my curiosity. This capsule, this studio is here for me to discover, and my curiosity to play. So that's the real priority here. I don't always do that. Sometimes I repeat myself. Sure. But that's part of the process.
It's interesting, folks that haven't been to the studio, but you have this beautiful vaulted area for the paintings. You have a separate area for printmaking that we'll look at in a few minutes, and then you have an upstairs studio for music. And it's like, I have to imagine that somebody who's as multifaceted as what you're doing, it's like this dream little place, right, where you can sort of move amongst all these different creative outlets for yourself.
Yeah, but lately, yes, that is very true. It is a dream. Like, I would encourage anybody that is creative and is making a go at making a living at their creative outings, that if you make money, to put it back into making more. Like, that's your existence. That's why you live. Like, keep going. Don't you don't make money and then go, well, now I'll go buy some great couch. Unless you make like a lot of extra money, then get that nice couch. But your goal is to get more supplies and feed that you-ness, that person that you are. Feed that need, that talent. Yeah. And one thing though, to contradict that in this building, or maybe not to contradict it, in this building, I've got a calling right now to sort of reduce this place to less disciplines. It feels like, I've got 3 or 4 disciplines going on in here, and I'm entering a time that doesn't look as appealing as it once did.
And it also, based on the scale of these works, as you can see, they're no small endeavors, right?
No.
So not only do you have a lot of disciplines going on, look at this. Here, wait, hold on. Let me, there he is. What was that TV show when they would like run back and forth, small and big? Yeah. I mean, these paintings are huge, folks. So when you talk about, paring down, when you are tackling these different artistic disciplines, music, printmaking, painting, I mean, you go all out. Look at the size of these paintings. This was in the North Carolina Museum of Art. And these paintings are really, really just impressively sized, and so well executed. This is an interesting one because this piece has so much presence. Can't remember what that was, but it was 10 feet by 10 feet or something, right?
Yeah.
And but done so simply, right? Just with yet all the impact of those pieces with all of the detail in them. So when we did the museum show, and folks, you should know that it's pretty unusual for an artist for their first, sort of outing, not your first outing. You've done a few shows on your own along the way, but when we met and started talking about the museum show, and that started to build, and Shannon got involved, and things just started to build up, and then your first sort of proper show was this massive one-man show with 60,000 people seeing paintings that you had created in isolation for all those years. How did you reconcile that, or did it just feel like it's okay?
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge deal. It was a complete, like a dream come true, and I relished in it. I celebrated and felt really a ton of gratitude for it, and I'm aware that it's like kind of backwards to be able to do that. And I know that with the discipline of music, that's what, if it was discipline of music, it might be the discipline of songwriting or the discipline of traveling. I think that might be what it is. But with that discipline, it gave me a good head start or foundation of just being able to get the word out. But, the thing is that I'm all along, like you said, all along, this discipline quietly and alone was happening. I never really wrestled with it. I just did it. I never got conflicted about it, except within the experience of doing it, but not with whether I should or shouldn't, or would it be worth it. I always assumed I shouldn't say assumed. I always expected and planned to show in the museum. I just did. I just felt like that's what I'm going to do eventually.
That's amazing, because a lot of artists obviously feel like they would love to do that. I'm not sure how many absolutely believe in the core of their being that they're going to do it.
Well, I think that what you're saying right there is if they would love to do it, that is wonderful. But if they actually believe, like, I'm gonna do it, and it will happen, and they're not too rushed to do it, then I do think that it would. I think if they're sincere.
Sure. Well, that's, I think, another interesting part about this, and a lot of people I don't think fully understand this, is that painting is not something that you came to later in life. Painting and printmaking and art making, from visual sense, is something that has been with you as long as music has been with you.
Absolutely.
And actually, you were pursuing it pretty diligently in school. Yep. So, I don't know if the music just got in the way, but the fact that you kept painting and kept at it with the same sense of sort of diligence as you did the music is pretty amazing. And
now now I know that I don't have to be one or the other. Like I can do them both. I just gotta be prepared, and I've got to be reasonable, and I can't take on more than I can handle. But and that's where I'm guilty. I couldn't tell. Like right now, I've never been this busy in my whole life. My head is just spinning. But the goal, like really painting, printmaking, like making pictures and making songs.
Yeah.
That's my contribution to outside of my family. That's my contribution. So I got to do it.
Yeah.
I will do it.
This painting, which actually is in the exhibition that we're going to have people see later when they go to the online exhibition. This painting, also massive in scale, was part of the museum show, and I think just really is a beautiful highlight of a lot of things you've talked about in terms of family and boyhood and manhood, and kind of again, I don't know if this is you or your boys or both, but it's an incredibly beautiful painting.
Well, thank you. I think it is both. I think that's light. I think that's anybody that paints is going to just talk about. I think they have to talk about light. I don't know if there's anything other than light, and that painting, it really was born out of an admiration for light on a precious moment, really.
Sure. It's interesting too that I find about your work is even though there's sort of specific faces, at least for me, being a father, I can certainly see my kids in these works and my own life in these works too. It's interesting how that comes together. And then these paintings, which are quite different, we'll talk about some of this iconography in a few minutes, are more intimate in scale than those massive ones, but equally as powerful. I guess I'm sitting in that room right now too, as far as everybody's concerned.
Yeah, you are. You're in the past, man.
Yeah. This is also from the North Carolina Museum. And then I'm intrigued by these paintings. And there's a number of these kinds of images in the show tonight that people will see on these legal pads. And somebody might look at this image and think that it's actually just pulled out of a legal pad and that you sketched this. But this, folks, is actually roughly a 40 by 60 or 50 by 60 inch painting that is hand painted with charcoal, etc. But I love that idea. Tell us a little bit about sort of those journal pages coming into being something more than just a journal page.
Yeah, I actually had a friend, Jeremy Okai Davis, who Seth had bought. He had done a painting of just a white piece of notebook paper on wood. And Seth owned that painting. I saw it, and I just completely forgot that I ever saw it. And then I guess that just lived with me. And I made one day, and I was like, well, this is really interesting how I feel sitting in front of this huge piece of legal pad paper, which is actually just a canvas, just a big painting, but this blank legal pad. So it made me feel something so much. So I made 8 or 9 of them. Mm-hmm. And at one point there were 3 or 4 that were blank, and you're just sitting around them and you're really feeling overwhelmed and intimidated. Everybody knows what a blank piece of legal pad looks like. And when you have a task to do, whether it's accounting or writing a letter to your landlord or doing something creative, writing a letter to your landlord in a creative way, whatever it is, it can be kind of daunting. And I wanted to explore that and find out. This is all in hindsight. It was happening as I was doing. I was just following this, but I would just test on these things and see. What I found myself doing was trying to be sincere on this huge piece of notebook paper in my studio. And instead of trying to look at it and say, I want to make this look like something that is ironic or neat or mysterious or exciting, it's sensational. Instead of doing any of that, can I live with this piece of paper and put a picture or write something on it that is of the moment and of now? And so what I did was try to, anything that came through me, apply it to these notebook pages. And if I felt myself being insincere and thinking too much about where this notebook page would go, then I just stopped. Yeah. Well, and in fact, that's why one of them, which I don't know if that one.
I don't have that in here, but yeah, I remember that one. It's interesting because a lot of painters talk about the intimidation of a blank canvas, and then you just up the ante when you put a legal pad on it. Right. So you've got that blank thing, but as a metaphor for our lives, I mean, I think about it too, like this blank canvas or this blank legal pad. What are we going to fill our lives with, right? I happen to, this is kids, so I resonate with this because I filled my life with my family, et cetera. But it's a little bit of a metaphor from that standpoint for me, anyway, when I look at these works too.
Yeah.
So I want to shift gears for a minute and talk about this question that is on everybody's mind. I asked you something already about this, but the way that music and art intersect, right? And I don't know who this guy is,
Me neither.
but music and art started to find their way together in probably a bit of a minor way, but not really when you're at a show. These backgrounds, for those of you that don't know, you were creating these backgrounds for these shows.
Yeah.
So you were bringing art, and you were bringing the two things together in some of these instances, in these banjos that you would paint, right?
Yeah.
The heads of the banjos. You've got tons of these in your studio.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah.
Did that feel just like a natural sort of move for you? How did that kind of come about?
Totally. This all stems from a bunch of doodling. I think that I've always loved doodling. I've doodled since day one. And if there's a place to doodle, and banjo heads seem like great places to doodle, and then doodling turned to something else. A stage design is such a great medium. There's so much to be done. And my biggest problem is that I tend to want to, the stage is moody in that if you do too much back there,
right,
it hurts the show. You know what I'm saying? And I'm guilty of that a lot of times. So I've learned how to look at that a little more. And I don't know if I certainly have.
This picture that I took, that I didn't think that it totally enhanced it from what I could tell for me and everybody else.
Good. I think that looks good. Yeah. And that's light. That's on a screen. So that's, Pete Schroed, who works with us, does a great job of applying all the stuff that I throw at him. So.
And then you take it to the album covers as well. And this is a real sort of definitive crossover. Folks, I'm sure, are familiar with this album cover, but they're probably not familiar with this painting, which is a painting of Sarah, your wife, but done in that same kind of style. And that's just a direct crossover in the two disciplines, which I thought was really cool.
100%.
There's some more of those notebook paintings, by the way. But, did you do? I can't remember which one you did first.
I did Sarah first.
Okay.
And then this I've talked about it a little bit. These eyes here were the original cover. Well, I was working on these guys. Do you see them?
Yeah.
Can you?
Wait, let me stop sharing. Sorry, wait 1 second.
These eyes, it was just going to be one eye. You can't tell right now, but within the pupil is an image of Seth and Bob and I. This was a different one. But that was right there was going to be the album cover. It was going to be like that.
Okay.
That was it with the image, but it wasn't working. I couldn't get it to work right. So, but I don't know if it makes sense how that would lead, but it did. It led somewhere along the way. It got to that. And the Sarah thing was informing it, just like you said. It was all working together at the same time.
Yeah. And then I think everybody's going to be familiar with this album cover, or most people on this call will be. But a really great thing happened with this painting as part of that museum exhibition. Talk about this for a second.
Yeah. Linda Doherty was willing to put this painting. I guess it was really her idea to put this painting in with the I guess European masters of the 1600s or 1600s probably. Yeah. Because my whole point in that painting was to try to paint a vanitas, which is the vanities of life, which eat me alive, and I think about them and write about them and paint about them all the time. But the idea was to paint it just like Caravaggio. I read so many books, just trying to figure out what Caravaggio's process was, and as close as I could get to it, the process as far as how to lay paint down, I did. I remember when it was done, I was like, while I was doing it, I was like, I just want to make a painting that you can't tell when it was painted, that if you saw it, you would think, well, it could have been painted in 1620.
Sure.
And it lived, and it looked right. It looked like it belonged. I thought it was incredible.
Well, it looked amazing at the museum, and Linda did such a great job putting that whole exhibition together, and her whole team. I don't know if any of those folks are on the call, but Marjorie and Linda and that whole team did such an incredible job. But this was, I thought, this was like a discovery. Nobody knew that this painting had been put there, and people would visit the museum and go into this section and suddenly find this painting that at first glance looked like it was a 16th, 17th century painting. And upon further, observation, if they even knew who you were, they realized it was the album cover.
So cool. So cool.
And then for anybody that's been to a show more recently, some of these icons are starting to make it on stage. This was from Red Rocks. But some of these icons that have become very familiar in your artwork have found their way into they're just kind of sneaking there on stage. You just sort of place them there, but they're such a big part of what you do. This jumping boy figure has really become iconic. It was the cover of the book, and I think people are just starting to really identify with that image.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it comes from that.
Yeah, it does. I think it does. Or what's the next one? No, you got that.
Or that one.
That. Yeah.
So this was a while ago.
Yeah, that would have been like 2007, 7. I think my back's still hurting from that.
It looks like you landed it, sort of.
Yes. Yeah, especially right there on the second one.
Yeah, this looks like you landed it really well.
One.
Yeah, kids, don't try that at home.
Yeah, Cracker Farm, Mike, he used to just love to, if I would offer some extreme activity or the less clothes the better, he would just try to, if I would shoot a shotgun or whatever I would, if he could get me to do something, the more extreme the better.
So Cracker is the photographer that he's really the official photographer for you guys, right? He's been really for quite a while. But then this installation in the museum was amazing, and this is this series of images that you put on these old on these vintage windows, kind of about this whole jumping, falling boy, spinning boy, falling girl, etc. But it speaks to another part of your practice that I found really fascinating, which is this kind of unique works in series where you're taking images and using them in different ways. So images are related to each other, but they're done in a different way. And I was telling you earlier, I was seeing it like, a recorded song, and then when you would perform that song, you would sort of take it in another direction, maybe. So the song could live a bunch of different ways on stage, differently than it lived when you recorded it. These base printed images, like this image here, again on one of those legal pads, right?
Yeah.
Totally different painting in that sense. Where did that come from when you started doing that?
As far as mixing these things?
Yeah, just that idea of, taking these things in these different directions. Like in this one, this is a painted background of a notebook page again, right? One of these large notebook
yeah.
text.
And this is paper, though. This is on paper, so it's not as big. And it actually feels really interesting. Like it feels good on paper when you. The canvas it's awesome. It's incredible, but it's about scale with that. With this, there's integrity of surface. It's different, but it's if you're Jerry Garcia in in the middle of a long jam, he's got all the scales. Like there's all these scales that he's using. I come into this building, and there's just building one approach after the next, and I just try one, and I'll try another, and I try different combos, and it doesn't really matter what I think, what I plan. It really doesn't matter what I plan, because if I step in the door, that's the hardest work is done. If I just open the can of ink or the tube of paint, the hardest work is done.
Sure.
These things just build upon each other. And I think in terms of a painter, a perspective, from the perspective of a painter, I just look at it as all brushes, The application of a legal pad on a piece of paper is one of the brushes I use, and I should try every variety, every variant.
Yeah. And those ones on paper, I think they're like 22 by 30 inches, so they're still pretty substantial. But this piece, I think, also is about 22 by 30.
Yeah.
This was a really cool iteration of this unique in series idea. So this piece is a unique piece, right? Of each one of these skulls you hand printed separately, right?
Yeah. Sure did.
And then mix some paint. That may not be the paint you mixed for this one, but then here again the legal pad coming out, but you get a whole different vibe when it's executed in this way.
Yeah, 100%.
And Sarah, you said something really beautiful to me the other day about these paintings of Sarah, because they're just so raw and honest. And I asked you, tell me what was happening here.
Yeah. And if I miss it, the beautiful parts, if I miss it, remind me. I mean, for me, we were in the, we were in the throes of really, we were both in the throes of motherhood. She was, leading that charge, obviously, but I was in the shadow of motherhood. Motherhood was at that moment, it really still is. But at that critical moment of feeding an infant and taking care of this helpless being, it took over everything in our household, and in a beautiful way. And I made a painting of her. This is from a photo that I took for the painting that I did. That was one of the large scale, 106 inches high. It was really just about paying homage, to the Queen, the Queen Mother.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's it, and seeing it in these different iterations, I think, just makes you look at that moment a little bit differently each time when you see these different color combinations and things.
And it's iconic too. There's a shape appeal to this piece, like the jumping boy and the flipping boy,
sure.
And falling girl. Like there's a I don't know. Once I scored that, I just felt it, and I knew it was going to live with me a long time. I knew I was like, I wanted it on a T-shirt. I wanted it on a piece of paper. I wanted it on a canvas. I wanted it on the wall. I wanted it everywhere. And I've never, after experiencing this life, at this point, I got a glimpse of how sexy the mother is. It's the best. Like, that's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. I just to pay homage to it. The whole thing is it had it all. It has, like you said, it has the rawness, and it has such a real sexiness to it. It's got an iconic feel to it. It's just, the image had everything. So I'm
also kind of impressed. I said this to you from your standpoint and Sarah's standpoint, that you guys really let us into some intimate moments, right? In these works, and it's pretty incredible. And a lot of artists shy away from that, I think, because they're not totally willing to share the most intimate part of their life. But you seem to not.
Well, I want to be more willing. I'd like to take it further, really.
Yeah. I love this piece. This is a print work. There's an edition of this piece. Those Sarah pieces, by the way, are in the exhibition tonight. This piece is in the exhibition. It's an edition of, I think, 15. These horns, I think, are just tons of fun. Maybe the obvious connection is just sound in your life, right? But interesting that it makes its way into the art here.
Yeah, and it's part of a series of plates that I haven't, or blocks that I haven't carved yet, but I have them drawn and mapped out. I've actually had them drawn and mapped out for years. I just abandoned it, but it was, once again, part of the Benitez idea. So there was a skull and a horn and a candle. There was a camera. There was something with a female figure, but this was the first image I carved. And then, like you said, it had such a presence in my life. Just the reality of music in my life, noise in my life.
Yeah.
And what better image than a horn?
that makes me think of in the deluxe version of the book, which is part of this exhibition tonight. There's a vinyl that we made, a vinyl record of these kind of song sketches, these of you basically working out songs with your iPhone in the middle of the house. And you talk about noise. You're in the middle of playing songs and the kids are coming up and screaming at you. It's the great. I love it.
I mean, yeah. It's precious.
It is. The Jumping Boy just spun another, however many degrees, 45 degrees, takes on a totally different idea here.
Mm-hmm. So this is Flipping Boy.
Yeah. So now this is Flipping Boy. And then you took that idea of repetition. Here, these are actually edition works. They're prints, so they're not one of a kinds. I think there's 10 or 15 in these editions. But you again took that idea of these multiple colors, which I thought was interesting. Talk about the skulls for a minute, because they come up a lot in the work, and I loved what you said to me about the playfulness of them. Which is kind of something you wouldn't think of necessarily. I'm going to go back to some of those other skull pieces.
Yeah, I was talking to you the other day about it, and one thing, the reason that they always show up, and I think that they likely always would, is there's a drive with me, and there has been. I recall as far back as being a teenager or before, and even being accused by friends and girlfriends and acquaintances of being a little too fast to the end, like a little too quick to the end, and like, you got some life to live. Why are you always talking about the end? Why are you always talking about death? And I think I got to a point where it's just something that I long to be comfortable with it, and I long to look at it as, I tell my kids, that death is a change of form, and we have to have faith in that. That death is a change of form. It's not failure. It's not the end of everything. Mm-hmm. And with that as well, there's tons of humor in life, in just the whole idea of life, and the big joke that it sometimes feels like. And so it makes it feel more playful, and it gives me permission in my own world to. And I don't want to put it off on somebody else, because it can feel morbid to some people. Not these skulls; they don't feel morbid; they really feel kind of jolly.
Yeah, right. You were talking about like a kid looking at the skull and crossbones, and the things we used to see as kids as danger, and we'd laugh at.
Yeah. There's not much too dangerous about these guys. Yeah, it's not really dangerous. It's not. That's not the point. That I always like that contrast in songs. Like Blind Melon had this song about Ed Gein, and it was just. It's so playful and fun sounding, but then you realize it's about this murderous dude, and but I loved it. It was just so good, and that contrast was great. So I've always loved that. I've always loved that push and pull, life and death.
Sure. And there you are. So I want to jump to a couple of the questions that we got from the crew, who were kind enough to send in all of your questions. And like I said, I'm sorry we can't get to all of them, but we're going to jump into a couple of these, and then we're going to unleash everybody into the exhibition. And feel free to take a look around when we do that. But there's a question came in from Leslie Roach, and she said, "I know you collaborate in your music, like with Seth and the band, but do you collaborate at all on your artwork?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were talking about that earlier. I have a tendency I always want to say, well, no, I don't really collaborate much in my artwork, because nobody's in here, painting half of a painting, and then I come in and paint half the painting, or someone does a collage. But the reality is that I certainly give and take with friends of mine, artists, like all the time. And I realize, like for you and I, like your love of printing, your love of articulating and identifying and revealing what is happening. You, and in a way, you identified something that I was doing that I couldn't see, and you were able to articulate that to me, and that helps open doors
Sure.
for artists, because I think artists sometimes get everybody gets sometimes caught up in their own. They don't take time to really see what they're doing, but you helped reveal that there was a deconstructive process, sort of this inside out thing that was happening that busted the print aspect of my work open. Just
Sure.
It burst wide open. And it's one of the most, it's a really joy to do. So yes, I do collaborate. I just don't think it's as conventional, and it doesn't look quite the same as getting on stage and singing with somebody, or putting a track on somebody's song.
I mean, taken more broadly with what you just said, I mean, I think it's kind of something we all do in our lives. It's really being willing to listen and look around and be open to things that are coming your way, I suppose, right?
Yeah, now the line starts to, and this line should blur in who made what and who should take credit for what.
Okay.
Who, you know what I'm saying? Like, it starts to.
I'll take credit for all the print work. It's great.
Yeah. In business, there's just mechanic, like there's just the mathematics of things, right? But when we talk about, oneness and how we're all, like you're saying, it applies to really everything. You start realizing
everything. Yeah.
Everybody's working off of each other. They really are.
Sure. We have time for one more, so I'll. This one is from Vic Mehta, and we've talked about how your art has changed a bit, right, over time through COVID. But what about your music? Are things changing musically as well?
Is that the question? Was the question?
That's the question. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you feel the music has changed in the same way as your art? Or
you know what? Yeah. You know what? Well, in that regard, it may have. I may have. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, I started like just cranking, and it was feeling like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this. And with the spanning of time, I don't know. I think I started settling down a little too, just like I did in some of these paintings, settling into a rhythm. I've certainly done that with the creation of music, like the creation of songs, the writing of songs. So a slower process. Yeah, it's not as frantic, but as soon as I say that, like a gear will shift, or I'll get in the studio and there'll be a calling to rapid fire something, and it'll just happen, So I don't know, but it does feel like things have settled in. There's been a ton of work and a ton of what you would say inspiration, I guess. There's been a ton of content in these times, for sure. Should we show the creek before?
Because we do have Matt Morrison had asked a question about seeing this creek painting, so I do want to share that. Actually, he was asking, he had seen this in an exhibition in the Hamptons, and was asking about it, because it looked very different. It wasn't figurative, just this really sort of tight look at something here, and he was curious as to how that happened.
Yeah, I want to say, because that's really applicable to what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because on several levels. One, the pandemic providing us with so much time at home, so much more contemplative and quiet time. A lot of that time spent in the woods. There were a few moments where, without the push of a schedule, I just found myself really at peace and content. And at one moment, I just looking down at this creek bed, I just felt like I saw I felt like that was my everything. That's the best way I could say it. I mean, it just was my everything, and it had to be, because it was. And so I just shot an iPhone picture of it, and I said, I'm not gonna paint it. I'm gonna draw it with pencil on a 90 by 70 inch canvas, and that's it. But I'm gonna do it in a grid. I'm gonna draw it in a grid. So I drew it in a grid and was just gonna leave it as pencil. And that took me long enough that I was looking at it. That was my plan. And just like our plans, the more I looked at it, I said, no, you're just avoiding what this is gonna be. So I pushed it and started the painting, and that was the beginning of this process of slow going, paint the details, small brush strokes, paint what you see, look at what you're painting. And I have to say as well, like I'm a huge fan of Gustave Courbet, and I always loved the way Courbet turned to the woods there in his later career. Like, and he just painted all these just almost bizarre wildlife paintings. I just thought they were incredible, and I felt a pull. Like I feel that brotherhood, and so there's some of that in this as well.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
That's an amazing painting. The detail in it is truly incredible. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that you had 6 months to work on that.
It was, yeah. It's a good thing. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna let kind of people in. We're gonna shift gears here, and we're gonna let folks in to the exhibition. A couple of things I want to say while we're here. We're going to be sending you a link to this exhibition. It sits on our gallery website. You need to click on the link. It's going to come into your chat. So if you can see a little chat icon at the bottom of your screen, looks like a little thought bubble almost. This is going to show up, I believe, in there. In many cases, when you get to the exhibition, everything is available for acquisition when you're there, but I just want people to know that in some cases, if it's a painting or a unique work in series, there's only one, obviously. So if you try and acquire the piece and it says it's unable to be acquired, send us an email so that we know that that's something that you wanted but you couldn't get. Same thing if it happens on the prints. The print editions are editions of like 7 to 15, so they're very small editions. And I know, with thousands of people here, I just don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's sort of a first come, first serve. We tried to figure this out. That was our best way of figuring this out. But if you do encounter a problem where you can't put something through the checkout that you want to acquire, let us know. Madeline Kisting's email is on this website. She's the director of our gallery, and she can help you. Either we may have something that's similar to it, or we'll put you, on a waiting list, and Scott, I'll bug you and see if it's a subject matter that you ever want to come around to again. Also, Madeline is available if there's any questions that you have as you're moving through the exhibition. She'll be available if you want to email her. Just be aware that, you be patient because there's thousands of people involved in this. It'll take a little time for us all to get back to you, but for sure, we will get back to you with your questions. So Orly, if you can hear me, can you please put that link into the chat, and let's see if that part of our technology is working tonight. It is there, folks. So what you need to do is open up your chat bubble there. You click on the chat bubble. That link is a live link, and will allow you to get right into that exhibition. So, Scott, thank you so much. Sorry about that technical issue at the beginning, folks.
Man, no
I apologize, but it's the way the world works in 2020. So,
man, and I'd like to say to everybody, thank you so much for taking time tonight. I wish I could hug every one of you. It means so much that you would take the time. So thank you.
All right, folks, we really appreciate it. If you need, Scott, if you want to drop off, I think I'll leave this up for a minute so that people can click on that link and make sure everybody got that link. I don't want them to miss that chance.
All right.
But thanks again. Really, really
appreciate
it.
All right. Much love.
Yep. All right. Take care. Folks, thank you so much. If you are unable to use that link, also email us, and we'll get another link to you if for some reason that link isn't working for you. Really appreciate it. Take care. Thank you.